a little focus on active recovery. So today we're going to focus on the feet and legs. You're going to want a foam roller. It can be any type you want, but just make sure that you've got something there that you can roll out on. You'll also want some type of myofascial trigger point or acupressure balls. So just to keep it really simple, we're gonna use a tennis ball. And just wanted to show you, this is from Rad Roller. It has not quite as hard consistency as a lacrosse ball, but it is really nice. And then the fact that there are two together can be really helpful for one of the things that we'll do. But if you don't have anything myofascial specific, a tennis ball should just work fine. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on our feet today, standing, and we're just going to bring the ball underneath the right foot. And let's just go ahead and stand with the heel down on the floor and just bring the ball right over the center of the ball of the toe there. And I want you to just kind of curl your toes over the ball and then release and spread the toes wide. So exhale, press down, curl your toes around the ball and then release. Press down and curl and release. And I've got a softness in my knees, and you can always use a wall or chair for balance if you want. Good. Now press down and hold, and you're going to lift your heel up, roll the ball right to the base of the arch of the foot, and I just want you to kind of gently roll back and forth right behind the ball of each foot. So it's kind of the top of the arch. And move slowly, and don't feel like you need to press down aggressively as hard as you can possibly go here. We're just kind of getting into a little bit of cross fiber work with the connective tissue, back and forth, right at the top of the arch. Good, and then I want you to come around to the outside edge of the foot, kind of the outside of the arch there, and you can put a little bit more pressure. So I have an internal rotation with my foot here, an ankle, and you can just roll back and forth, back and forth. Good, and then go to the center of your arch of your foot, and then the inside of the arch. And you can kind of play there. And again, maybe in the center, you're going back and forth, all the way to the back, all the way to the front, and finding that kind of sweet spot. Now, if you did have a myofascial ball, one nice thing about it is that because it's rubber, if you're on a yoga mat, it's gonna stick a little bit. So you can get a little bit more kind of purchase on that ball. But a tennis ball is so accessible for most people. And to be honest, the softness of the tennis ball is nice because you're not kind of digging in and really getting that deepest amount of sensation, just sort of feeling. Now I'm doing a little circular motion, back and forth, back and forth. And then I'm going to come onto my toes, so the ball of each foot, of each toe there, and then lower your heel down, and then press and release. And you're going to do that a few times, just kind of lowering, lifting the heel. Good, and then push the heel down, and then push really into the ball, so you're squishing it a little bit, and you're going to lift and lower the toes, and lift and lower, and lift and lower. And then push the toes down and wiggle back and forth a little bit. And this can be tricky because, of course, the heel can, it's a little rounded, so it's a little harder to keep that ball in place. So just do the best you can do, wiggling back and forth. Good, and then we'll come off, and I just want you to stand here for a moment and close your eyes. And notice just how the different feet feel here. Notice how maybe the foot you just worked feels like it's sort of spread out like a pancake. It might be feel like it's taking up more surface on the floor. And that's when you know that the fascial work that you're doing is working. It's really kind of breaking up all that tightness between all of the connective tissue. So heel down, second side. And again, you're going to curl your toes over and release. Inhale, curl the toes over, exhale, release, and spread the toes wide. Good. So the teacher that I have followed over the years who's given me the most insight around myofascial release and just the fascia in general is Tiffany Cruikshank. She's a yoga teacher. I know on YouTube that we're supposed to be strictly self-promotional, but you know what? If I'm not giving a nod and a shout out to all of the inspiring teachers that guided me to knowing what I know and being able to share what I can with you, then what the hell am I doing? So Tiffany Cruikshank, she owns this amazing business called Yoga Medicine. She's very, very in-depth, and if you want to geek out and kind of get deeper into this type of work, you can follow her. But the nice thing about myofascial work, so now I'm just working back and forth at the top of the foot. My heel is on the mat here. I've got a bent knee, both sides. So the nice thing about myofascial work is the more we do it, the more familiar it becomes. And actually, the more we do it, the more we look forward to it. It kind of starts to allow us to tune into the subtleties of our body. So right here, I'm rolling back and forth on the inside of the arch. Good, and then on the middle of the foot there, in the arch, and then the outer foot. And that's kind of, I'm just working it back and forth. Good, and then heel down, all the toes are curled under. I'm just kind of rotating the ankle in and out, in and out. And the nice thing is, because this is a video, you can take more time with this if you have it. Keep your heel connected, kind of rolling back and forth over the ball. And then you can start a little bit faster work. Just again, really breaking up that tension that happens in the fascia. And so if the word fascia is totally unfamiliar to you, or you're just not, you've heard it before, you're not sure what it is, fascia is, there's a lot of research that has come out about fascia in recent years that shows that it also actually, in terms of our cellular intelligence, has its own system, proprioceptive system of kind of picking up sensation. But the fascia flows in between all of our muscles and in between all of our connective tissue, and it thrives on mobility. So the more mobile we are, the more it glides. It has this kind of viscous, liquid-like feel, a gel-like fluid that glides in between and helps us facilitate that mobility. If we're sedentary, or if we have an injury or a lot of tension, go ahead and push your toes down, push your heel onto the ball, and you're just gonna push down and lift up here. So the tighter we are, whether it's from injury, from stress, from being sedentary at our desks, the liquid starts to thicken, that fascia starts to thicken and harden. And that's when we get these kind of knots and just these areas of less mobility, of tighter muscles. And in terms of the feet, plantar fasciitis is a really common issue if we have a lot of impact on our feet, or if we're wearing shoes that may not benefit us. And some people are just more prone to fasciitis than others. And yes, you can go get dry needling done. Definitely, if it's really extreme, you should for sure seek treatment from a podiatrist or physical therapist. But just kind of doing this kind of work can really help be therapeutic for the tissues so that you can keep healthy pursuing the things that you want to pursue. Okay, so again, come off, and then just take a moment to stand nice and tall, close your eyes, notice how you feel in the feet. Good, and then before we come onto the mat, we're gonna come onto our foam roller. So bring your foam roller, and again, for this, you really wanna be next to a wall or some type of surface that you can just support yourself with, okay? So on the foam roller, come onto your feet. And this is also a stability challenge, so even holding on, you just want to feel that lift through your core and pelvis, soft knees, and then you can just kind of slowly march back and forth. So just slowly lowering one heel and slowly lowering the other. And I've got some wobbles and some shakes for sure. If this feels unstable for you, you could come off, just push one foot down and up. But what I like about this is that I'm kind of feeling that core stability work happening. So it's really active recovery in the body and a lengthening of the calf muscles, the Achilles tendon, and you can kind of hang out on one side and just let that Achilles tendon release a little bit, let the calf open up. Good, so more of an active stretch here. But if you roll your feet back and forth, notice here you can kind of slowly roll the foam roller back around the feet. Just a little more release there for the fascial tissue. Okay, and then we're gonna come off. Slide the foam roller aside. And I want you to just come onto your mat for a moment. And we're going to come into toes pose. Now, toes pose, for many people, is pretty excruciating. You're gonna come to tabletop, and if you can, curl your toes underneath you, sit on your heels, Gently take your finger and just guide your pinky toe forward. Some people say flick it forward. I prefer to just gently guide it so your toes are wide, and then sit up on your heels. Now, I know there are a lot of you who look at me doing this and think, ain't happening. And that's okay. Just sit nice and tall. If this for you feels a little bit painful, but you can do it, sit here and breathe. Maybe try to take a minimum of 10 breaths or sit for at least a 60-second hold if you can. If it really bugs you and you need something to do, just to take your mind off it, just lengthen your arms up overhead and open and close your fists really quickly. Just open, close, open, close, open, close. And another thing you can do to help you is to take a block, guide it underneath your sits bones between your ankles, and sit up high on the block. What you want to do is avoid this and try to get to a vertical spine. And then eventually you're going to come off onto tabletop and release the curl of the toes and pat the feet out. Good. And then come and sit back with tops of the feet down. And then you're going to gently press back behind you. As long as there's no knee pain, you're going to slowly roll back, lift the knees, and slowly lower. So this is stretching the front of the feet, all of the ligaments and tendons, the tops of the feet there, and front of the ankle. Inhale up and exhale down. Good. So toes pose is one of those that is excruciating for many people. I find that the more you do it, the better it feels. And strangely, I find this in so many things in yoga in general, that the more we do something, the more we kind of gravitate toward it. So we maybe start with a lot of aversion, and then once the body really starts to respond to it, then it becomes more attractive to us to do again and again. Okay, so now we're down. We're going to come onto our mat, take the foam roller and the ball, and do some more leg work here. Okay, cool. So now we're down at the mat. So let's actually start with the ball. So we're going to do some work with the ankles, shins, and calves. And let's go ahead and start with the shins. So we'll start on tabletop. You're going to bring this ball right behind your knee joint, bring your knee down onto the mat. And so right here, you might start with your toes curled behind you and just feel that place where you kind of feel some light sensation. Okay, and then you'll slowly lift the knee joint up and gently, slowly roll back and forth. Now, right now, I'm outside of my tibia, so outside of that larger of the two bones in the lower leg there. And I'm not moving a lot, just a little bit back and forth, kind of getting into the lower knee and that shin, the shin muscle there. And so when you're working, kind of notice those places where you feel sensation. And again, don't feel like you need to go to the place with the most sensation. It's definitely very key to breathe. And it's also like you can totally govern how deep you want to take this. So if it's too much and painful, just lift up a little bit. Just don't put as much weight down. And then I'm going to take my knee down here, kind of position that ball right where my shin muscle is, and then flex and point, and flex and point. And just do this a few times. Good, and then circle the ankle a few times each side. So that mobility really helps kind of get into the cross fibers and deeper into the muscles. Again, allowing them to glide a little bit better. Okay, and then we'll come off and take the second side. So again, I'll flip over to show you. So knee is down, hands are down, and I'm gonna start with just resting the knee down, finding kind of that sweet spot where I'm feeling it right in the meat of my shin muscle there. And then flex and point, and flex and point, flex and point. Good, and then lift up, and you're just gonna slowly roll back and forth. And of course with the ball, you're gonna feel a little bit of back and forth and side to side movement, and that's a good thing, that's not a bad thing. And again, we're not here to be aggressive or like, I know at the gym, I often see people like rolling out and the expressions on their faces look so excruciating. And I know this can be a lot. It can feel really deep. So I just recommend slowing it down and not feeling like, you know, the purpose is not to feel pain. It's really to start to observe where the tightest parts of your body are. Sometimes when we're doing the work, we notice tension in areas that we hadn't even realized. Good, and then you're gonna come off and we're gonna work on the top of the knee joint while we're here. So I'm gonna bring the ball right in front of the knee, and I'm gonna bring my left knee forward, and I'm gonna come onto my forearm. So my left knee is up quite a bit, and if this is too much on the knee, you could come up higher. Good, and then I want you to just bend and straighten the knee. And my knee is coming off the mat a little bit here. So just a little straighten and bend. And just kind of do whatever feels most comfortable in your body. Straighten and bend. And so I'm feeling this right at the connective tissue where my quadricep is attaching to the top of my patella. Good, and then I'm gonna bend and hold and flex and point. Flex and point. And then see about maybe seeing if you can rotate in and out a little bit. So in and out. Good. Nice, and then we'll come down and take the second side, so come all the way up. I'm gonna take this on the second side here. So again, my knee is forward, and my elbows are down, or you're coming up onto the fingertips, and knee is up a little bit as you're up and down. And up, and down, and up, and down, and then lift it up and flex and point. Flex and point. I like to do this maybe 3 or 4 times, and then gently rotate in and out. So many times joint pain is a result of imbalance and overuse on one area of the body and like not enough strength in another area of the body. But it can also be a result of undue tension and pressure on the connective joints and the connective tissue. And the connective tissue works harder when we have imbalances or when we're overusing a certain part of the body. It's really there to support us, and this is just a really nice way to kind of restore that mobility and get things moving more freely again. Okay, so let's come onto our seat here. We're gonna work the calves. So right here, we're going to just sit down and feel that ball right on the back of the calf, and I'm gonna internally rotate here. So my toes are going to the right side of my body here. And I'm going to prop myself up so I'm a little off of the floor here, and just slowly rotate back and forth. Just not a lot of movement here. I'm just in the lower part of my calf. Good, and then I'm gonna hold. I'm gonna sit down and hold just when you find that place of moderate sensation, and then point and flex. Point and flex. Point and flex. Good, and we're gonna do that 3 times, slowly working ourselves up the leg. So again, sit yourself down when you feel a place kind of mid-calf here. Again, inside the calf muscle, flex and point, slowly. Notice how as I flex, I'm moving up off of the ball, and as I point, I kind of relax into it. And then I'm rotating or moving myself just a little up toward the back of the knee. Flex and point. Flex and point. Good. And then all the way up to the center of the calf muscle, and then just glide it back and forth a little bit. Good, and then we're coming to the outside. So I've gotten into doing more editing on my videos and really paying attention to making myself watch myself, which is probably the hardest part about recording videos on YouTube. And I have noticed that you could almost like play a drinking game with how many times I say good in a given video. So I'm trying to catch myself and say good less. Let's move down. Mid-calf here, again, external rotation, and do those 3 flexes and points. Good, and then 1 more, I just did it again. I think the hardest part is that I trust that you are on the other side there, listening and following along and kind of getting your own experience. But I try to say cues that I feel like are going to connect me with you, and we all have our habits, right? We all have those things that we kind of fall into. Okay, and then right in the center of the calf muscle, right in the belly, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you can kind of work your way down and back up and down and up and down and up. Good, and then second side. So there I was again. Okay, and then let's start with the internal rotation first. So just come down and then glide yourself up inside of the shin muscle, flex and point 3 times. So lower calf muscle. Good, and then neutral foot roll to the center. And again, the beauty of a video is that you can take as much time as you want. So if you have more time in your day, don't feel like you've got to rush this. I definitely would love to squeeze this into a 30-minute format so that you can fit it into your day, but I really do encourage this type of work to ideally be part of your regular routine. And also, you know, it could be 5 or 10 minutes before bed, 15, 20 in the morning, or when you get back from a run or a hike or whatever you're doing with your day, but that it becomes, you know, regular part of your life. So I'm at the top of the calf muscle, outside now, in and out. Good, in and out, and then back to the center of the muscle, externally rotated. That's it. And just again, noticing those little knots, those little knobbies, and those areas that feel, you know, where you really feel kind of the ropey nature of the muscle. That's a Tiffany Cruikshank word, and it's really perfect because those muscles do feel like little ropes. And then right here, I'm at the bottom, so I'm just going to glide back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then right to the middle of the muscle center, a little back and forth there. You know, my husband plays tennis. He's been complaining about plantar fasciitis. He came home last week after a match saying, I got to go see a guy. And I said, well, before you go see the guy, why don't you let your fitness teacher wife guide you into some active recovery? And he's been feeling so much better, and now he's actually becoming kind of hooked on regular sessions like this on his own. And this is the empowering nature of active recovery. It's just really learning how to care for yourself there. So one more thing before we come on to our foam roller is just, now that we've done the toes pose, we did the heel stretch, I want you to just take a low crouch here. So after all that calf muscle work, curl your forehead towards your knees and open your back body, which feels great in the back of the shoulders and neck, but also let your heels descend down and just let that muscle group open up, kind of spread wide, feeling a stretch through the Achilles tendon there. Good, and you can lift the toes nice and high, and then set it down, and we'll come on to our foam roller. So for the foam roller today, we're going to start with the inner thighs, and you'll come down to your forearms, and I'm going to bring my right inner thigh onto the foam roller, and my left hip is down, and I'm just going to kind of let myself feel from the top of the knee there, a little back and forth. So I'm going to use my forearms, and I'm actually going to push myself up and just gently glide forward and back. So the inside of your knee, right at the top of the knee is where we're starting. Good, and hopefully you'll feel, like I am, some sensation there. When you feel a nice amount of sensation, bring your leg to straighten, flex, and point. You can't see my toes in this frame, but you're going to inhale, maybe flex and point, exhale, bring it in. Or you can simply glide out and in, and out and in. Good, and then hold, and you're going to internally and externally rotate the leg. And notice I'm kind of pressing myself away from the mat. Good, and then let's rotate onto the middle of the inner thigh and go again. So out, flex, point, bring it in. Out, flex, and point. And again, that movement can feel kind of intense. So if that's too much for you, just modify. You don't have to move. Okay, and then up to the top of the inner thigh there, and we'll go again. Out and in, out and in, and then internal and external rotation. Okay, and then all the way up, and you can kind of get into the groin, the inner thigh there. And it's really nice because you can definitely use your core to offset the pressure, or you can really kind of lean into it. But again, not feeling like you've got to necessarily take this to the most extreme place of sensation. I'll take the second side here. So again, second side, find yourself settled down there. And then lift up a little bit, roll in and out right at the top of the knee. Yeah. And then out, flex and point, draw it in. Out, flex, point, draw it in. Out, and flex and point, draw it in, and then in and out. In and out, in and out, and then middle of the inner thigh. Out and in. Good. So many muscles in the various areas, of our legs, and so many fitness forms really just focus on the quads, the hammies, the glutes. There are so many other smaller, lesser muscle groups supporting those muscles that, again, we're sort of feeling all of the various muscles of inner hamstrings, inner quadriceps in this work, including those inner thigh muscles, your adductors. Good, so if you're taking bar with me and you're really working those stabilizer muscles, which I hope you are, these muscles do tend to get sore, and they always could use not just stretching, but sometimes a little bit of work to kind of get into those areas. So if you're unable to get a massage in, as right now not many of us are, or you're just too busy, or massage is not in the cards for you budget-wise, this is again a really nice alternative. So inner thighs, and then we're going into the outer thighs here. And so outer thighs, I'm going to go ahead and bring the roller right underneath. I'm going to come into the outer hip here, and you're just going to bend that leg and keep the upper leg either forward or back. I'm going to bring mine a little bit farther back. Good. And then here, I'm just going to straighten and bend right at the top of the knee joint. And yes, it can be pretty intense. And right here, I'm actually resting my inner thigh toward or right onto the foam roller. Because again, IT band can be so sore and tight, and don't feel like you've got to do a massive roll or go super fast. And here I'm going to straight and bend. I'm just kind of working myself up. And one more, toward the top of the hip, straighten and bend. Good. And then we'll come to the second side toward the IT band. Well, you know what? Before we go to the second side, let's go ahead and do the quadricep on the same leg. So you're just going to rotate in and come onto, again, I'm going to put a fair amount of pressure on my arms and lift my core, but my toe stays connected. And I'm going to go right into the outside of the quadricep here, toward my hip, and then slowly move my way down. So rather than a big, huge roll and sweep, I prefer to just work small, like a little back and forth, work your way up. And again, if you want, you can always add some mobility. Adding that movement, feeling the various muscles and how they wrap around each other, how they glide back and forth among each other, how they work intrinsically to support that mobility in the body. And then right in the center of the quadriceps, same thing. So again, I'm kind of balancing that opposite leg on the ground and working my way all the way up. And with the belly of the quadricep muscle, you can go a little bit bigger with that movement, but I would stay nice and slow. And then just come off. And again, maybe just take a moment to notice how you feel. Notice one side of the body versus the second side. Notice maybe a softness around the left leg or whichever leg you've just worked. And notice kind of how maybe you even notice that the muscles themselves have spread wide or maybe not as high or lifted. If you've got your hands on your quads here, you might feel like one muscle is actually lower down and wider than the other muscle. And then we'll work that second side. So you'll come all the way up. And again, on your right side here. And you'll come on down. And let's start down toward the knee like we did before. So hips down, leg is back. And then you'll lift up and a little straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. And I am kind of lifting myself up a fair bit here so that I can kind of offset the pressure onto the foam roller with my upper body and my core. And I just feel like, maybe you're having a rest day and you just want to do a little something that's beneficial. Maybe you're really sore from something you just did or tight or stressed. But I know for me on a rest day, I always want to do something. I always want to do even like a deep stretch, a little bit of core work, something that kind of tunes me in, just maybe slowing it down a little bit more, okay? And if you're interested in working the hips and the back, you can check my other video that I've done on active recovery. I have covered this before, but I really love this kind of work so much that I'll be offering it more often. I will definitely be offering it on a more regular basis. It's one of the 3 areas of my classes that I want to continue to emphasize for you guys, okay? So then on this side, we'll come to the quadricep and just work our way back and forth and just kind of tuning into those bumps, any type of kind of resistance. And of course, if you have an injury in your body, I want you to really be gentle and not feel like, again, digging in deep and being aggressive with rolling is necessarily the most effective way to work your stretching and your mobility. Really try to be gentle. Maybe if you have an injury, work around that part of injury and start to kind of awaken and tune into the subtler muscles around that area of injury and maybe how they could use some relief of pressure or maybe a little more strengthening. Good, and then we're just gonna come off, set the roller aside, and then just come onto our backs. And just lay down for Shavasana here. And let your legs spread wide, let your palms open, and just roll your shoulders down the back. And as you slow your breath down, really allow your muscles to soften. And take a moment to notice how your feet, your legs feel. You might feel a little tingling sensation where you've just rolled out. You might feel less sensation than you did prior to class, maybe less tension, maybe less pain. And if you don't feel a big difference, don't worry about it. Don't get stressed or feel like you need to feel, from 10 to 1, a huge range of difference. Just allow yourself to really tune into this kind of work. Stay in Shavasana as long as you like. I'm so glad to be able to share what I've learned with you from my teachers to you. And if you have any questions at all about this work, please comment, like my posts, please subscribe to be able to follow my work more consistently and share with others, because my goal is to really include as many people as I can in this type of work of self-discovery, of mindful movement, and of self-care. Thanks so much for tuning in.